Welcome to another interview session here for National Distance Learning Week at NNU. I have with me Bethany Studebaker. I'm actually going to let her introduce herself here in a minute, but she is on the other side of this. She is one of our remote faculty that we have here at NNU, and if you didn't know that, you now do. And I'm going to ask her a few questions, kind of similar to some of the other interviews that you may have seen this week, and just to kind of get her perspective, because it's a very deep and very rich perspective. But she just brings a different flavor to our conversation, right? And some of the understandings we have here about distance learning and how it affects not only just our face-to-face students, but our, we'll call them distance students, right? Our online students as well. So Bethany, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to just hang out with me for a little bit.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
So can you just start off, give us a little bit of information about your background, right? So where you come from, your experience with education and distance education.
Absolutely. So if I go back far enough, my experience is in K-12 education in a brick and mortar building. And so I was a classroom educator as well as principal and curriculum director, and then had the opportunity to switch over to post-secondary education. And when I switched over to post-secondary education, I was also a student experiencing online and blended education. And it was really, at the time, was very just introducing into education, this idea of online and what does this look like. And from there, I am now currently an assistant professor in graduate education at Northwest Nazarene University, which is a fully online program. And so I have the opportunity, as Jesse mentioned, to be working remotely. This is the first year that we've had remote faculty members. And so I'm joining you from Oregon right now, which is a wonderful opportunity because I not only am working with online students, but I am of myself am an online and remote faculty member. And so having to learn how to mitigate the conversations and the communication and the relationships have really been something that I've focused on the last several semesters.
That's so terrific. That's so terrific. So kind of piggybacking off of what you just said. So how have you noticed a difference, let's say, or is there a difference in what you feel from those traditional type settings, right? That brick and mortar face-to-face kind of an understanding to what you've noticed in those distance or those online classrooms. Have you noticed is there something that you feel is better in a sense, or is there something that you feel is, can you talk about the difference?
Absolutely. So up until about a year and a half ago, I would have always called myself a face-to-face teacher. One, because that's what I knew and that's what I felt comfortable with. But I truly think that having experience being an online teacher, online education has really surpassed that notion of this latent trend. And it's become this integral part of what education is. And I think specifically in higher education. So when I think about my teaching philosophy, and I think about my teaching philosophy 10 years ago, and I think about my teaching philosophy now, nothing has changed. As an online teacher and as a brick and mortar teacher, my philosophies and how I conduct and do what I do in the classroom is very much the same. And yes, it looks different because I need to build relationships differently. I need to communicate differently. I need to provide feedback differently. Yet in and of itself, what I do every day is the exact same. And so I truly feel there's a huge benefit to online education. We can reach out to such a huge population that we wouldn't be able to in a brick or mortar because they're working full time or they're not in the same location as us. So it provides a lot of opportunities for sure. And again, I think it's no longer a trend. This is what we're working with in education and something that we need to take a hold of and understand and grasp and enjoy, because this is what it's really all about right now.
I love the fact that you mentioned that your teaching philosophy, right? So the way that you have taught in a classroom has not changed. Those paradigms that you've created, right, back when you were training to be a teacher and using the knowledge that you had, right, to figure out, well, how am I going to do this? What do I want to do? How do I want to be this educator? It hasn't changed. And I love how you just so eloquently put that I've learned to just adapt how it is that I've always wanted to do things and how I've always done things in the classroom to this new mode, this new medium. And I think that's so important for people, faculty, professors, right, teachers to understand that we don't have to change our modality, right? We don't have to change how we've always done things in a classroom, but just take those really great tenets of being an exceptional educator and apply them just in a different light. That was spectacular.
Well, and truly for me personally, Jesse, I almost feel as if I've become a better educator because I've done things, and you have to do things so intentionally when you're online. And part of me as an educator that I will profess is that I want those relationships and I want that communication. And it's something that when we're face to face, it's just to be assumed. We're in the same room as our pupils, and we're able to interact with them. Online, I have to do so very intentionally. And so what I've noticed over the last several years is the relationships that I'm building. It's not that I wasn't doing them intentionally to begin with in a brick and mortar, but so much was assumed because I was having conversations with them face to face. But I have to take the time and I have to take the energy and the effort to make those connections and make those relationships online. And so I'm just able to foster much more powerful and meaningful conversations often because it's so intentional and so purposeful.
That's terrific. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think that that's something that scares people in a way, right? Because they are just so ingrained, or it just becomes so second nature to have, oh, my students are here, I can interact with them, I have all of this time to get to know them, and it just kind of happens sometimes haphazardly. That was one of those things where I agree with you. When I was teaching in the regular traditional classroom, you take for granted those interactions because I'll see the students every day or every other day, for a specific amount of time, and I build my relationships that way. And I love the fact that you highlighted that, you have to be intentional when you're teaching online to dig deep into, who those people are, to really get to know them, because at the end of the day, that's part of education, right? It's not me just giving you information. It's not me just being like, hey, here's a book, let me throw some knowledge at you. What you retain is great. What you don't, we'll hopefully review and you'll get it back later. But it's feeling like those people are connected to you and to that classroom. And I can tell you personally, so on a side note, that's been one of the most beneficial things and I can say that it really is. You're not just saying it to say it. It really is truly how you operate. And it's one of those things where, I don't feel like because you're not on campus, right. Or I don't have an opportunity to walk across the street, right, to go to your office like I used to, that our relationship as, a student and my professor has been degraded by any stretch of the imagination. So that's terrific.
Well, a lot of people have asked, and I'll back up a little bit because I don't know if I said it, but I'm really quite new as the remote faculty member. I've only been doing this for about 3 months, and so we moved about 8 weeks ago, and so a lot of people have asked, how are things going? And truly, unless I've mentioned to my students, hey, I'm not living in Nampa anymore, they don't necessarily know that. Of course, you're on campus, so you do know that.
Right.
But I think the hardest challenge has truly been personally for myself not being on campus. And that's a totally different topic in and of itself. But in terms of myself as an educator and instructor and teacher, I hope that shift wasn't even noticed, because truly where I am as an online instructor doesn't necessarily matter for my students as long as I am able to meet those objectives and communicate with them effectively and build those relationships and give them feedback. I could be on a cruise, I suppose, and all sorts of things. But that truly hasn't changed how I interact with my students, because the expectation and the understanding for online education is that they may not be across the parking lot. Of course, that's just an added benefit for some of our students, is that we do have access and we do get to see them face to face. But for the majority, that's definitely not the case, that we are having the conversations like we're doing right now or over the phone on a weekly basis.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I love it. Well, and like I said, it's wholeheartedly, it's so true. And you do it very, very well. And so I speak from my personally, I love it. And I think you're doing an amazing job. And I know that the rest of the people that you work with feel the same way. So I'm speaking now for all of them. But thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it. just taking your time out of your day to hang out with me for a little bit and just answer a few questions and share, your thoughts and feelings about distance learning and online education. Would you do me a favor? Just let people know how they can get in touch with you. So if they have questions or, they just want to connect with you in a way, how does somebody get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So email or phone. So my email address is bstudebaker, bstudebaker at nnu.edu. You can also reach me on my office phone that, yes, I do have an office on campus still. I do come down about once a month. So that number is 208-467-8802. And my cell phone is always, yes, I am open to any questions, suggestions, anything. Would love to talk to anybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Those of you that decided to join us, thank you so much for coming and joining us, and look forward to talking with you possibly, and check out the rest of our interviews for this week. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.